This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer. This story borders on the bizarre in its telling. Jesus has just come down from the mountain where he was transfigured, and you have this stressed by the story. Peter, James, and John, just the three of them, found themselves with Jesus alone. They no longer saw no one with them except Jesus alone with them. After that, Jesus carried on this private conversation with the three of them about the second coming of Elijah, and how in John the Baptist, Elijah has already come again, and maybe also in Jesus, Elijah has already come again, and our brains are suddenly numb, trying to follow along, as though someone has whacked us with a skillet. But still, it's this intense conversation going on with Jesus and the three, when suddenly they come back to the other 9 and they find a crowd surrounding them with scribes arguing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed, and running up to him, they were greeting him. Within the snap of a finger, we've suddenly jerked from a quiet, deep conversation with Peter, James, and John to this chaos of a faceless crowd running up and chattering in excited greetings, and I don't even know why they were amazed to see him. What were they expecting? Jesus asks them, What were you all arguing about amongst each other? Well, considering that it was the scribes, it was probably something about the law of Moses again, whether a dead lizard could make an electric oven ceremonially unclean and liable to be smashed to pieces, or some sort of age-old tradition about the Sabbath, right? Then this crowd, babbling in amazement and chaotic greeting for Jesus, suddenly speaks with one voice. "Teacher," the voice says. The crowd comes to order and indicates that it wishes to be taught. A teacher is presented with a problem of some sort. He considers the problem, turning it over. Then he addresses the problem, giving it back to his students, teaching them both about the problem and also the remedy. This kind with nothing can be cast out except with prayer. The end. Next story. What? What does that even mean? This kind with nothing can be cast out except with prayer. What makes this kind different from all those other ones that were cast out not with prayer? Shall we be taught? Why not? Let's try to get at the heart of this strange matter, shall we? If you can imagine the crowd as a kind of tidal pool at an ocean shore, just at the time the tide is beginning to come in, crashing about among all the rocks, rushing in and pulling out with great strength, making a great loud lot of noise, a crowd first arguing amongst itself, then seeing Jesus running over to him in some sort of amazed surprise, still chaotic, but not arguing anymore, greeting Jesus, and when he speaks, the chaos ceases. The crowd indicates that it desires to be taught. It presents to Jesus, the teacher, the problem. I brought my son to you, seeing as how he has a mute demon, and whenever it takes a hold of him, it throws him down, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth, and then he becomes rigid. And then I spoke to your disciples that they might cast it out, and they were not strong to do so. This is not quite a hypothetical now, is it? This is not whether a dead lizard falls on your favorite serving dish, or whether it's a patch of dry skin or actual leprosy, or whether it's okay to rub kernels of wheat in your hands on the Sabbath. This is an actual fall down, frothing at the mouth, unclean demon, and it has our son. The crowd speaks, you see, and says, I have brought my son. This is our problem. We, the crowd, are by nature in the realm of the unclean demons, and it is a problem. And we have presented it to the teacher in the hopes that he will give it back to us with a remedy. Oh, generation of little faith! How long do I have to be with you? How long do I have to endure you? Fine, bring him to me. Jesus intensifies the problem, our problem. Not only are we born into the realm of the unclean demons, but we have little faith. Nevertheless, Jesus might be willing to help us. A friend of mine went to Haiti after one of those hurricanes 20 years ago, going as part of a church mission, I think sponsored by the St. Louis Seminary. While he was down there, he encountered a demon. Now you have to understand, this fellow, Ben, is as ordinary a young man as you'd ever meet, raised in Detroit, which made him a diehard Tigers, Lions, and Wolverines fan, and insufferable that way during college basketball season. And he was about as prototypical a Great Lakes region Lutheran fellow as you can imagine. Going to the seminary, learning his Greek and Hebrew, his doctrine and dogmatics, his church history and liturgy, when this opportunity came about to do good to those who were suffering. Ben says, "Dave, I was asleep one night when suddenly I woke up, unable to breathe. It felt like someone had his hands around my throat and he was choking me, but no one was there. So I prayed to Jesus to save me, and the hands were removed. I fell asleep again and thought nothing more of it. When I got up the next morning, the local witch ran up to me saying, 'You're supposed to be dead.' I asked her why she said that. She replied, 'I summoned a demon to kill you in your sleep.' I told her that my God Jesus had overpowered her God." Now, I don't remember if Ben told me that she converted to Christianity, but it's in my mind that he did tell me that. At the very least, the verbal exchange between Ben and this witch made a pretty big impression on those who were a witness to it. The crowd melts away, and we are left with a single man in an encounter with Jesus. It's like some sort of weird dream where we had this crowd speaking with a singular voice, voicing our problem, then the crowd is suddenly over there somewhere, according to dream logic, with this poor father struggling with faith itself against an almost unwilling Jesus who even resorts to mocking his request, "If you can," followed by a powerful remonstrance. All things are possible for those who believe. "I believe," the challenge comes back to Jesus with a resounding bellow. "I believe. Help my unbelief." What a prayer! In the great crowd of all those who desire God to deliver us from evil, because we are entirely powerless, to deliver us from the realm of the unclean demons, it is finally each by each, man by man, woman by woman. If you believe, then Jesus can, Jesus will deliver you from this present evil age, delivering you from it into his kingdom. And he delivers you to it by the most evil, demonic, unclean affair ever seen under heaven, the brutal crucifixion of the innocent Son of God. Does the crucifixion indeed forgive your sins? I think every day we are confronted by Jesus saying, "If you can." All things are possible for the one who believes. Every day we, the crowd, have this experience because each of us has what this father has, some terrible, evil thing tucked away somewhere in his life. You don't have to search long or far to find it. At the very least, your unclean heart is the evil thing tucked in your life. Does the crucifixion indeed forgive your sins? Somehow the crowd began to reconstitute itself, running together at the sight of this man begging Jesus to help his unbelief. So Jesus quickly dispatches with the demon, perhaps dispatching it too quickly, such that it left the boy for dead, so that many of the crowd were saying he was dead. But Jesus grasps his hand and raises him up, and the boy rose. That exchange must have left a pretty big impression on those who were a witness to it. See, that's the prayer that casts out the demon. Why weren't we able to cast it out? This kind, Jesus says, with nothing can be cast out except with prayer. The prayer is, "I believe, help my unbelief." This prayer is the answer to the question, does the crucifixion indeed forgive your sins?